Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're tackling a pretty hot topic in Spain, something that's really come to light thanks to the, well, always sharp analysis from Juan Carlos on his YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're focusing today on the controversy sparked by the lawsuit King Emeritus Juan Carlos I has filed against Miguel Ángel Revilla, the former president of Cantabria. It's a striking situation, to say the least.
Striking, yeah, and with several really interesting angles. So, just to set the scene, Juan Carlos I has decided to take legal action against Revilla over statements he considers damaging to his honor. But here's a detail that kind of connects a few current events.
Oh, what are you referring to exactly?
Well, it turns out the King Emeritus is being represented by the same law firm, Novalex Boutique Legal, specifically the lawyer Guadalupe Sanchez Baena, who is also handling legal matters for Alberto González Amador, that's Isabel Díaz Ayuso's partner, regarding certain YouTube content. Does that connection ring a bell?
Wow, that's,
Yeah.
well, it's a surprising coincidence, if nothing else. If I remember right, that same firm sent a notice to Alan Barroso about a video on his channel, too. Seems like there might be a specific legal strategy emerging for these kinds of cases.
Definitely seems that way. And that's exactly why, in this deep dive, we want to break down the key aspects of this lawsuit. What exactly is Revilla being accused of? What were his statements? How has the public reacted? And, importantly, what broader implications can we draw from this legal clash? Let's start at the beginning, though. What do we know about the lawsuit itself?
Okay, so based on the information that's been made public, Juan Carlos I claims that Miguel Ángel Revilla made a series of statements in various media outlets between May 2022 and January 2025. He considers these statements injurious, defamatory, and opprobrious, directly attacking his personal honor.
And this response to these alleged offenses has turned into a formal lawsuit, right?
That's right. The King Emeritus's lawyers have filed a suit initially seeking conciliation. If, an out-of-court agreement isn't reached, they're asking for 50,000 euros in moral damages, plus a public retraction from Revilla in the same media outlets where the statements were originally made.
And one detail that hasn't gone unnoticed is that Juan Carlos I announced he intends to donate that 50,000 euro to Caritas if he wins. A gesture that, well, some might interpret in different ways, especially considering his current tax residency outside Spain.
That's certainly a point open to analysis. But let's focus now on Revilla's actual words. What is he alleged to have said that triggered this whole legal action?
Right. So here we get into territory where, although there isn't an official list of the specific statements being sued over yet, Alan Barroso suggested on his channel that the root of the problem might be Revilla calling Juan Carlos I a commissionista, basically, someone who earns commissions, and openly criticizing his wealth.
That commissionista accusation itself implies a direct criticism of his ethics in financial dealings. But Revilla went further than that, didn't he?
Oh, definitely. He also publicly stated his wish for Juan Carlos I to return to Spain with his fortune and apologize. And listen to this personal assessment. Revilla described him as the great disappointment of his life, citing a lack of political coherence and, maybe more damaging for an institutional figure, a lack of exemplarity.
Those are some really harsh words, showing a pretty deep disillusionment. Are there other specific examples of his criticisms that might have prompted the lawsuit?
Yes, during an appearance on the show El Hormiguero, Revilla referenced the alleged 100 million from Saudi Arabia and the 65 million given to Corinna Larson, questioning the origin and scale of the wealth accumulated by the King Emeritus.
That's a topic that's always been shrouded in controversy, hasn't it? And it's raised a lot of questions among the public. What else did Revilla say that might have crossed the line Juan Carlos I considers damaging to his honor?
Well, he was very critical of his decision to establish tax residency in Abu Dhabi, and also the management of his wealth through foundations abroad. Many see that as a strategy to, avoid paying taxes in Spain. Revilla was really blunt about it, saying, "For me, someone who refuses to pay taxes in their country is not a Spanish citizen."
A very direct statement, appealing to a sense of civic duty and fiscal patriotism.
And he didn't stop there. Revilla even suggested that if it weren't for the inviolability protecting the monarch, Juan Carlos I might face legal consequences similar to political figures like Le Pen or Sarkozy, given the suspicions about his financial activities. He even called him a fiscal runaway and a tax delinquent.
Wow, that's very strong language with serious legal undertones, although, as Revilla himself mentioned, it's based on opinion and speculation because of that inviolability.
And to really hammer home his point, he delivered a line that sums up his stance perfectly. "There is something more patriotic than carrying lighters and bracelets, and that is paying taxes." A clear jab at certain symbolic gestures that, in his view, mean little without a real commitment to the country's tax obligations.
It's clear Revilla's criticisms were direct, sharp, and hit some very sensitive points regarding the King Emeritus's public image and conduct. So the big question now is, how have people reacted to this legal offensive?
Well, the reaction was swift, and a key element is the public distancing by the royal house, meaning King Felipe VI, who has stressed that this lawsuit is strictly a personal initiative of his father's.
Right, a strategic move to kind of shield the current monarchy's image and separate it from Juan Carlos II's legal battles. Makes sense.
Exactly. And from there, opinions are really divided. Alan Barroso, for instance, offers a very interesting take. He thinks Juan Carlos II's actions, including this lawsuit, might actually, paradoxically, be helping the cause for a third republic in Spain by, eroding the monarchy's image.
That's a pretty radical perspective, reflecting a debate that's definitely simmering in certain parts of Spanish society about the future of the state itself.
On the other hand, you have Jose Pasarina, who's actually a biographer of Juan Carlos I. He calls the lawsuit incomprehensible and interprets it as a possible veiled warning against future criticisms or publications that might be uncomfortable for the King Emeritus.
Like an attempt to draw a line in the sand and maybe deter others from following Revilla's critical path.
What's quite significant, as Silvia Interondo pointed out, is that the initial press release from Juan Carlos I's law firm doesn't specify exactly which of Revilla's statements are considered defamatory.
Yeah, that lack of detail is, well, a bit peculiar from a legal standpoint. As the jurist Joaquin Bosch noted, in a lawsuit for violation of honor, it's pretty crucial to specify the exact expressions and the context they were made in so they could be properly evaluated by the court.
And amidst all these reactions, you couldn't miss a touch of, let's call it, controversy within the controversy. Eduardo Inda, in a comment shared by Guillermo Guijarro, went so far as to call the lawyer, Guadalupe Sanchez Baena, an abogada con ganas de llamar la atención, basically. A lawyer wanting to grab attention, implying her motives might be more about media exposure than purely professional.
Ooh, a double-edged comment there. Indirectly criticizing both the lawyer and the legal strategy chosen by Juan Carlos I.
Silvia Interondo also emphasized that lack of specifics about the alleged offenses in the initial announcement. It does seem like a somewhat opaque communication strategy, don't you think?
Definitely. It creates uncertainty and makes it harder to fully grasp the legal basis for the suit.
And Revilla, true to his direct style, hasn't stayed silent. In a subsequent press conference, he repeated his criticisms of the King Emeritus's tax situation and again questioned the patriotism of a former head of state who chooses not to pay taxes in his own country.
Back to what seems to be the core of his critique, the lack of fiscal commitment to Spain.
Revilla also made a point of saying he's always spoken his mind throughout his political career, even to powerful figures. He even mentioned his past defense of the monarchy, which really underscores his current disillusionment.
Right, highlighting a personal and political evolution regarding the figure of the King Emeritus.
And he insisted he never bowed his head before the king, and that, in his view, paying taxes is a far more significant act of patriotism than any symbol or gesture.
A direct challenge to a certain traditional idea of monarchy and patriotism there.
There's also a slightly surreal anecdote. Revilla apparently found out about the lawsuit while he was filming a movie with Antonio Resines. Kind of illustrates how unexpected this whole development was.
Yeah, that definitely underscores the surprising nature of this legal showdown.
And circling back to that parallel we mentioned at the start, the coincidence that both Juan Carlos I and Alberto González Amador, Ayuso's partner, are using the same lawyer to sue those criticizing their actions or public image. It's striking, to say the least. It fuels various interpretations about the motivations behind these legal actions.
It's a pattern that really invites reflection, doesn't it? About possible coordinated strategies, or at least a convergence in how criticism in the media is being handled from different spheres.
So having laid all that out, what do you think are the broader implications of this whole affair?
Well, first off, this lawsuit could set a tricky precedent regarding the limits of free speech and criticism of the monarchy in Spain. How far can you go in questioning the king, even an emeritus king, without risking legal action for defamation?
That's a fundamental question for the health of public debate and the accountability of institutional figures, for sure.
It also makes you wonder about Juan Carlos III's real motivations here. Is he genuinely trying to restore his honor and public image? Or is it more about intimidating and silencing critics?
It's a complex question, isn't it? The answer probably involves a bit of both. The legal strategy itself and the timing are definitely factors to consider.
And in the bigger picture, this whole episode highlights the ongoing controversy surrounding the role and responsibility of the monarchy in contemporary Spain. As has been noted, even from within his own family circle, Juan Carlos I's actions potentially damaged the image of the institution as a whole.
Absolutely. This case just adds another chapter to a debate that's been going on in Spanish society for years about the legitimacy, transparency, and exemplarity of the crown in the 21st century.
Which really raises an important question for anyone listening. How will public opinion interpret this legal offensive, especially considering the previous criticisms and this connection to other high-profile media cases? The answer to that could significantly impact the long-term perception of the monarchy.
Well, we've reached the end of this deep dive. We've looked at Juan Carlos I's lawsuit against Revilla, the statements that apparently triggered it, that surprising legal link to Ayuso's partner's case, and the various reactions it's provoked.
Yeah, it's a complex landscape, reflecting the tensions and debates currently active in Spanish society regarding its recent history and its institutions.
And now, just something to leave you thinking. Given all the details we've explored today, what does the situation really tell us about the current state of the Spanish monarchy and perhaps the limits of free speech when it comes to powerful figures? It's definitely something to ponder.
Indeed. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
And to you, listening.
Hola, si está escuchando esto, posiblemente no esté suscrito al canal. Activad la campanita para que os avisen cuando haya un nuevo relato y compartid con la gente que queréis. Os lo agradezco de corazón.